Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Conservation Fridays. Today we have Sandy Pierce, and she is going to be talking to us about the value of e-waste.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for Berry Accounting for having me here. I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen and do a little bit of introduction of myself as well. Here's the screen. So a little bit about my background. I worked for Patnus before, and Patnus is a recycling company in the state of Michigan. There's 26 locations, and I was heading their electronic recycling division, where we collect and work with counties and collect and processing some of the electronic, whether that's from consumer or businesses. Just as this week, I have joined another company named BASF. They're a chemical recycling company, and they refine some of the they refine some of the automotive catalyst into precious metal containing material. So it's very exciting to kind of see how the precious metals coming full circle in terms of gold, silver, palladium, platinum. So I'm honored here to kind of discuss a little bit about the consumer electronics that the counties typically see, and just to cover a wide range of what you might see in the collection site standpoint. So I want to take the time to talk about terminology. So I really like this slide that I saw. It talks about recycling bins and then the trash cans and the special recycling area. So I think the recycling bin, most people will understand when you see in the business locations, you see like paper goes here, or aluminum can goes there, and plastic goes a certain area. So those are more of a standard, standard recycling that households or consumers are very familiar with. And when we talk about waste or things that go in the trash, I think most people have a decent understanding of that. But in terms of electronic scrap, and I know scrap and waste are the words that we're currently using, but my mindset is more, hey, it's really recyclables, because if we call it a waste, then we're saying that there's nothing else to recover, right? And the recycling is really the effort to recover some of those waste stream of material. So I would think electronic recycling falls under that specialty region. And I would like to just give an overview of some of the lower grade material in terms of electronic recycling, mid-grade material, and high-grade, high recoverable material, and then summarizing it with my thoughts of how to successfully set up a conservation of electronic recycling. So the first slide here, I have some of the lower recovery material. And basically that means like you have to either pay to recycle it properly, or that some recycling center might be taking it at no cost, no pay, so there's no value in return. So those typical material are things like your CRT, the cathode tube material, LCD, LED screens, and some of the alkaline batteries and fluorescent tube, light bulb, and ink and toner. And the reason behind that, most of those contains heavy metals. So that is lead, arsenic, mercury, and some of the material here that you see contain high carbon or graphite, and that will fall under your ink category. And that's why there is a fee, and it's not good for those things ever to go to landfill, because then you're putting harm material in the soil. So those are, to reasonably or to responsibly recycle it, you will want to make sure it gets to a recycling site. And I think most of the counties in the state of Michigan does have collection sites set up for those. Some of the mid-grade recovery material, here you will see a picture of a router. Router is like an internet connection point, and some of the DVD players and some of the MP3 personal musical players and power supplies of this sort. Most of the mid-grade recovery material, you can get paid for them. It's a lower value. However, there is recoverable precious metal in them. When I say precious metal, that covers like gold and silver and palladium. Some of them also have base metal like copper. So copper is a very common base metal that you see in wires. So you can see the power supply here in this picture that has that wire attached. So is your AC adapter that has the wire. And most of the giveaway with this mid-grade recovery items is that typically is a plastic housing, and plastic is basically most of the weight. And there might be a small piece of board, and the board, so here you can see there's this printed circuit board, PCB board here. They're smaller, and most of the things that you see in the AC adapter is that plastic cover wire outside of the boards. Same thing with the power supply. You can kind of see in the bottom, I'm using my mouse cursor here trying to point at it. Here you can see some boards there, but if you look closely enough, the boards might be brown in color. They could have a huge copper capacitor. So those are the giveaway of their mid-grade because the precious metal contained in them is not as high. Some of the higher recoverables that will include your laptop, your computer towers, or your server networking equipment. Typically, this is more in the business enterprise setting, or your smartphones, cell phones, or maybe your hard drives. And some of the giveaway for the high recovery is that most of them are metal containing, metal casing. And you will see, so smartphone, for example, that's probably one of the one that we can all relate to very easily. You can use your smartphone to do a lot of things. You can use it to check your email and to get on social media. There's a lot of high functioning, and it's touch screen. There's much function that goes in that. However, if you think of like your thermostats, say at home, the boards inside of the thermostats might not be as high recoverable as a phone. Because the phone with that many more functions that it needs to do, it will typically has more of those IC chips to make those type of technological connections. So that's kind of one way to distinguish from some of the mid-grade and high-grade material. So that is kind of what I want to cover, just a quick summary of the low grade, the mid-grade, and high grade that we normally would see in terms of counting collection standpoint. And when I was with Patnus, I did a lot of collection event with most of the counties. And my recommendation to set up successful events is, one, know your material. So I think this is a very first step, knowing what we're collecting, what is mid-grade, what is high grade, what is low grade. So knowing that is the first initial step, because after you know, then you can start separating them. And a lot of the recycling company, a lot of the collecting company, they want to make sure that you are separating them enough so that they don't have to do a further segregation, which then you can maximize your value and be smarter with the effort that you're doing in terms of in the community. So make sure you know, and then make sure you're segregating them, and then make sure you have a strong partnership with your recycling company. So just continue to do those three things is what I would recommend. And education will be the last thing. Educating the people in your county how to sort what is really waste and what is not waste, so that people can be responsible enough to not let a lot of the electronic go in the landfill. Because if you look in the open website, a lot of times if you go search how much electronic is being recycled, it goes from anywhere from 12 to 20% is what everybody is publishing. So I don't know what the real data is, but it's low. So, and I think I think that, you know, in the community, we don't purposely throw things in the waste if we don't have to. But I think it's just an education opportunity for people to understand what is waste and what is recyclable, and then really come together to make that effort. So that's all I have. I would like to see if there's any questions or what's the next step.
All Great, thank you so much for that, Sandy. That was really informative. I'm not seeing any questions. If there are any questions, you can go ahead and type that in the chat or just turn your mic off and ask. Don't. I guess there's no questions for now, so thank you so much. We'll go ahead and end.